From the Pep Radio Newsroom, these are the stories we are covering at this hour. On the anniversary of the 9/11 terrorist attacks, U.S. Representative Chip Roy criticized the current administration's track record on immigration and lamented the state of public education. The Republican, who represents the 21st district that includes a sliver of San Antonio's north side, used his 30-minute address on the House floor to say the country needs to commemorate more than just the victims of the terrorist attacks 23 years ago. Roy said that victims of crimes by immigrants and victims of fentanyl also need to be acknowledged. In his address to Congress, Roy called for mass deportation, saying that the current border policy is allowing people to be slaughtered. He promoted a report by his office that highlights crimes perpetrated by immigrants, asking, "Where's the commemoration for those Americans?" He also showed support for school vouchers while making a jab at transgender people. Roy said, "What is left of the United States to defend? A school where I can't send my child to pray to God without spending $20,000 a year on top of the taxes I pay? A school that my friend sends her sixth grader to with a trans music teacher asking her kid to do some dance in class? Yeah, that's a true story." Our advice to Representative Roy is to sit down. Let's be clear about a simple concept. Lesbian, gay, bisexual, pansexual, queer, and yes, transgender people too exist and will no longer hide in the shadows of society for any reason. We are teachers, doctors, lawyers, assistant secretaries in the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and many other professions. Some of us are in the military while others are civilians. Some of us are in newsrooms reading these stories and are more than happy to call you out for your bigotry, Representative Roy. More than 2 decades ago, when gay men and lesbians were prohibited from serving openly in the U.S. military and had no state legalized same-sex marriages, a national LGBTQ plus rights group decided to promote change by grading corporations on their workforce policies. The Human Rights Campaign initially focused its report card, named the Corporate Equality Index, on ensuring that gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, and queer employees did not face discrimination in hiring and on the job. Just 13 companies received a perfect score in 2002. By last year, 545 businesses did, even though the requirements have expanded. But the scorecard itself has come under attack in recent months by conservative activists who targeted businesses as part of a broader pushback against diversity initiatives. Ford, Harley-Davidson, and Lowe's are among the companies that announced they would no longer participate in the Corporate Equality Index. Experts say the index helped improve workplace benefits for LGBTQ plus people. The index also prompted many companies to create employee resource groups, which are voluntary, employee-led diversity and inclusion groups for people with shared backgrounds or identities, said Fabrice Hudart, a consultant on LGBTQ plus issues. The index is also a resource for LGBTQ plus workers to consult before deciding whether to accept a job, Paisley said. A company that's getting a 100% versus a company that's getting 25% is an indication to our community about which companies are treating their employees more fairly and equitably, he said. Dozens of legal cases have been filed against employers for DEI initiatives, including complaints that target hiring practices, employee resource groups, or mentorship programs that plaintiffs say prioritize people of certain races or sexual identities while excluding others. Most American companies launched a review of their DEI programs last summer in the wake of the Supreme Court decision in Students for Fair Admission versus Harvard. According to Jason Schwartz, co-chair of the Labor and Employment Practice Group at Gibson Dunn, a law firm that has helped more than 50 major corporations audit their DEI programs. The opponents to these efforts are winning the war of words, and they've got a lot of momentum in the courtroom. So I do think it's a serious threat that needs to be responded to in a thoughtful way, Schwartz said. But there's also a flip side. Companies built DEI anti-harassment programs in part to mitigate potential legal risks that come with a toxic workplace. And in abandoning these programs, in fact, it opens them up to risk down the road if employees feel discrimination or harassment, said Eric Bloom, vice president at the Human Rights Campaign. Companies that distance themselves from the Corporate Equality Index also risk driving away a growing customer group. A Gallup poll conducted in March found that 7.6% of adults in the U.S. identify as LGBTQ+ or some other sexual orientation besides heterosexual, up from 3.5% in 2012. Among Generation Z, that number climbed sharply to 22.3%. In a survey conducted in August, 80% of LGBTQ+ customers said they would boycott companies that are rolling back inclusion initiatives, and more than half said they would take concerns to social media or share negative reviews online, according to the Human Rights Campaign Foundation. I think they will lose in the end, LGBT talent and LGBT customers, Hoodart said. And the parents of trans kids, which are an increasing population in the United States, they're probably going to remember that those were the companies who went out of their way to side with the bullies. And that's a quick check of the news for PEP Radio. Now let's get back to the music.